Hello, my name is Erica Merrill, and I am the founder of Perfect Legal Video. I'm very excited to have with us today Attorney Nicole Reeves Lavallee. She owns a family and real estate law firm in the Worcester area, and she and her team are fantastic at getting results. We're very fortunate to have her with us every week, giving us tips that save thousands and thousands of dollars, probably tens of thousands of dollars, and answering all the questions that you may not have the answers to as a non-attorney or a non-family attorney even. So thank you so much for coming on the show today, Nicole.
Thank you for having me.
So today we are talking about attorney's fees, and how you can get the other side, like what happens when the other side has to pay your attorney fees. Now, first of all, we should back up and talk about the reasons why the other side would have to pay your attorney's fees. I know there's a few reasons, and I'm going to let you uh, tell the audience.
Well, the biggest reason and the most common reason is in a contempt case. So you have a court order, they haven't followed the court order is clear and unequivocal. It's written right there. It says you need to pay $500 by January 1st. January 1st has expired. You haven't paid it. Really simple. Those are the nice, easy cases. And then there's a little bit of gray areas with other cases. But when you have an order that says it, and then if you have a separation agreement and the separation agreement says if you breach this contract, then you're responsible for attorney's fees. Now we have the ability to collect attorney's fees. So very limited circumstances as to when we can collect and how we can collect, but that's like the easiest one. Then there's going to be certain things that are going to be you're filing a frivolous claim. You're doing something that has no basis. Whether it be like a breach of contract and there's the contract really doesn't exist, or you're asking for attorney's fees in a case that it's not warranted. So again, we're going to go back to, is there a contract? Is there writing somewhere? So a separation agreement is going to have that. Maybe you do have a written contract. I don't care what the contract's for, but you'll see it a lot of times when you're dealing with services. If you fail to pay for the home improvement contract and I have to sue you, I'm entitled to attorney's fees. Another great example of when you're going to see it in a contract. So you have to read the contracts. Big issue. Nobody wants to read their contracts. So first and foremost, let's look at the document itself. But obviously, those are the most common places of when you're entitled to attorney's fees.
Also, like I've heard where you're going through a divorce and one side has to pay for the other side's attorney. Does that actually happen, or is that just a figment of my imagination?
It does happen if you ask for it. So it is a motion for pende lite. It just basically means I want to get my fees paid now so that I can be on a level playing field with you. You've got all the money and I don't have any money, so I need it. So you're paying for your attorney and I can't afford an attorney. That's really where it comes into play. There's a very special provision in the law under 208.17 that says you can ask for attorney's fees. Will it be granted? Again, up to the discretion of the court, but certainly you can request it. And basically, the court is going to say, okay, I find that you can get entitled to $5,000 in attorney's fees, whatever the magic number is. The judge will also say that that amount of money will be credited or looked at the time of final divorce. So maybe, your spouse got 15,000 in attorney's fees and you only cost you 5,000 or you only paid 5,000. Again, we're going to look at those offsets and see whether or not we need to shift it.
That's good to know. So there's a few options for when somebody can get their attorney's fees paid. Now, you just mentioned where someone can ask for it up front because, hey, a lot of attorneys take a retainer at the beginning of a case. How does that work? Is that how it always works? You ask for it up front, or are there other parts of the case, times when you would ask for that?
Well, the pending light date is I'm asking for it in advance of the litigation. That's actually what it says as pending light date. But yes, you can ask for it at the end. Opposing counsel just dragged this case out, and we had to depose my first cousin twice removed about one issue, and then they deposed my boss, and an old boss nonetheless, wasn't even a current boss. And so obviously, again, if somebody's running up a bill or dragging their feet in terms of settlement or negotiating or giving you documentation, those are great things where you can get it at the end, because judge, there's no case. We should have been on a 14-month track in a divorce, and we're now on year 3. And all of the delays are caused by you. So those are perfect times when we're going to ask for it. So we can't ask it at the end. We can also ask it in the middle. Sometimes when, again, you're asking for a motion to compel because they failed to provide the documentation. So you did interrogatories or production of documents. No documents were provided. No interrogatory responses were provided. Okay, I have a conference with them. They continue to ignore me. Great. So now, as a result of all these things, we're going to have to go into court and ask for attorney's fees. So there's lots of different times throughout the process that you can ask for attorney's fees. So only beginning, middle, delays, and then obviously at the end.
So how is it usually granted? Do they say, hey, there's a payment plan, or this person needs to take out a loan? I mean, attorney's fees, they could really add up to tens of thousands of dollars. I mean, you and I have talked about how, a child support case or parenting time case can cost $50 to $100,000 for the one aspect of the divorce alone, depending on how long it takes. So what usually happens if these numbers are big and it's not just pocket change?
Well, I think the biggest thing is, again, asking for an attorney's fees up front. When you're asking, you're going to say why you're asking for it. So I want the pending light date. I want it in the amount of $7,000 because that's what his attorney got when he was hired. So again, level playing field. You got 7,000 for your attorney. I'm going to get 7,000 for my attorney. That's generally what's going to happen. Is they're going to look at it and go, well, how much did you pay for yours? Okay. So if they're going to grant it, that's really what they're going to do. Again, if it's ongoing litigation and somebody keeps delaying it, at some point you're going, I can't. This is now $30,000 and we're not even close to pretrial yet. And so you can go in the middle and say, these are being unreasonable things. And so now I need to have the advance because all the money's tied up and, we've got liquid assets. We got assets, but they're not liquid. So what am I supposed to do? So you'll ask for it then. So again, depending on when it is, but ultimately the judge will determine the amount. If it's obviously because of a contempt or at the conclusion of the case, the judge is going to ask you for your affidavit. So the attorney's affidavit as to why you think you need these attorney's fees and what the amount is. And the attorney's going to have to articulate, this is my hourly rate. This is based on my experience. This is all the expenses that I incurred. And it's going to have to be itemized. It can't just be, I spent $50,000, give it to me. That's not going to fly. So the judge wants an affidavit with all of the fees. Now, again, as an attorney, it's really hard because we can't say, I talked to the client about blah, blah, blah. I talked to the client about negotiations and settlement, because I can't say, I talked to the client about how unreasonable he is, or I talked to the client because we've had the smoking gun. You can't put that because there's that attorney-client privilege. So we have to tweak our affidavits. But certainly, again, those are things that they're going to look at, and then they're going to consider all of that and say, this is what's reasonable. And then the judge is going to determine the amount and the date that payment is made.
Wow, I mean that's really great. So can you tell me who gets is it the lawyer that gets the money and then they disperse it? And how quickly do you get paid?
Great question. All depends on what the judge says. So at the end of the day, obviously, if it's a pending lighty fee and you've already advanced some attorney's fees, then maybe it's going to be a hybrid. It's something that you're going to be putting in your motion. So in any contempt, I'm going to put it in that the attorney's fees are going to go to me as the attorney for. And if my client has paid me any monies and they're due money back, I'll just refund them the money. And obviously, if I haven't used any of the retainer, I'm going to give them the retainer back plus whatever that we've gotten awarded an attorney's fee. So it kind of depends. But we have to look at that order. The attorney's going to negotiate, the attorney's going to argue as to who should get the money and why. At the end of the day, that's obviously a conversation you need to have with your attorney as to what is best for you in that particular case. A lot of clients are like, well, I'm just going to give it to you anyways. And from the attorney perspective, it's not that I don't trust you, but I want to make sure that I'm going to get paid. So we prefer, obviously, it goes to us. And again, willing to give you any refunds afterwards.
So a lot of times you get something settled in court, and it could be any kind of court. Sometimes the people don't end up paying you. It's happened to me in business a few times. And small claims court, it's happened twice where I've won and I actually haven't gotten paid. So I can't imagine, and that's small claims. I can't imagine in a divorce, what a huge impact it has in your life if you don't get paid and you have children to feed.
Is probably the hardest thing. Again, your remedy, if you're in family court, is going to be okay. One, hopefully reach out to the other attorney, go, what's going on? I'm going to be filing a contempt, and encourage them to do the right thing. But obviously, if you've done everything you possibly can and your ex is just going, not a chance in hell, then really your option is to file a contempt on the judgment, which is really frustrating because you're like, but wait a minute, I've already got the award. I don't want to spend more money trying to get what I'm already due. And so you're kind of in this catch-22 situation of, wait a minute, I'm spending more money so I can get less money because the attorney is going to get the money. And what? And unfortunately, that's really the case. I mean, I had an award where the attorney's fees were awarded, and they were awarded to me. And my client, pro se, because our case had ended, filed the complaint for contempt, and she said the attorney refused to, or the judge refused to award her the attorney's fees because I wasn't there to testify that I didn't get paid. And so now this woman is now forced to have me either draft up an affidavit or to show up in court to say I didn't get paid. And how frustrating is that?
That is a terrible situation. I mean, do you see this happen a lot where something gets awarded, attorney's fees get awarded, and then they don't get paid?
I've seen it. The good thing is I can say it's happened about a handful of times that the payments aren't made. Usually it's me writing a nice little letter that's, not so nice. Or me making a phone call going, really? Last chance before I file a contempt. And then if I file a contempt, I'm going to be asking for even more attorney's fees. So get off your butt. And hopefully that will incite people. And usually it at least incites people to work out a payment plan. If they can't pay it in full, maybe it was a contempt issue and the judge found $3,000, and you're going, I just don't have the money. Great. As long as you're working out something with them, chances are they're not going to file a contempt because they have something coming in and they know at the end of the day there's still a court order. So if you're in that situation and you don't have the money and you have a court order, unless you're appealing it, work out some kind of plan or something to go, hey, look, I've liquidated the money, but I'm waiting for it to come in from Fidelity. I haven't gotten it yet. Talk to somebody about it.
This is really good information. And I guess my last question is, y- you're talking about getting attorney's fees and trying to get them up front. I mean, is there any advice that you would give to somebody that is thinking about going through some sort of separation or divorce, and they know they can't afford it? They have no idea, even a lot of times they have no idea even what the family funds are. A lot of people are surprised that people will keep separate accounts and they have no idea, or one person's in charge of the money and the other person has no idea. They just know that, hopefully they know that the bills are getting paid, and sometimes they're surprised that the bills actually aren't getting paid. So there's a lot of surprises in divorce. But what would you say the first few things they should do if they know that they can't afford it and they need some help?
I think the biggest thing is, hopefully they're not exactly what you talked about and they do have some idea. Because again, an attorney is going to be more inclined to do a motion for pende lite if they know that there's assets that are there that can be liquidated, that can have attorney's fees associated with it. Versus, I don't know, I have no idea what the funds are. I can't tell you. Great. I don't know that there's many attorneys that are going to want to take that chance on the chance that you might have some money. So first off, hopefully you at least have some kind of idea or you're able to get that information. The other thing is, see if you can borrow money from a family member. And then again, if you find out or if you have that smoking gun of, hey, look, they really do have this amount of money, then at that point you can ask for a pende lite motion and then you can reimburse that family member. Other things is, there's LAR services out there. So again, limited assistance representation. So you're getting it at a limited basis, less money up front, that the attorney is going to work with you. So there's a lot of options out there. But I think the first step is coming to the office and just knowing what your rights are, because you're not going to know just by listening to this video. You're not going to know by, looking it up and Googling it. Talk to the attorney about your specifics in your case, because they can best advise you as to what's beneficial for you.
Absolutely. And, we're talking about people that actually do want help from an attorney. I mean, a lot of people try to do this themselves and they mess up their whole case. And so I would say that if you are in the Worcester area and you have questions, at least give Nicole's office a call because they're fantastic. They can answer some preliminary questions and see if you're the right client for them and that they're, the right attorney for you. I know that they do that and, answer some preliminary questions on the process because you don't want to be going through this process alone. They are fantastic at coming up with strategies that work for you in your situation. So, is there anything else that we need to know about attorneys' fees getting paid before we go?
I think, again, you just want to remember that they're offered lots of different times in your case. So don't be afraid to go, hey, well, I'm already, toward the end of this case. Again, maybe it's something that has been delayed that you can at least get reimbursed on for stuff that's happened. A lot of judges right now are putting in their orders, their trial orders that say, if you're asking for attorney's fees, you need to have this motion by this day. So they're offering it. Read it. Ask your attorney about it and say, is this something that we can do? Maybe the answer is no. Maybe it's just it's taking the normal amount of time and everyone's doing what they need to and we just need to get there. But it doesn't hurt to ask that question.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate all of your help and your care in coming up with these fantastic interview topics and giving us the information. I know that it helps. And thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Thanks again, Nicole.